Hello and welcome in, friends, to another edition of the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast. I am one half of your trio champion, Mike Mercado, with the one, the only, the other half of this two-thirds trio, Everitt O'Neill. What's going on, Everitt?
Good, brother Michael. How are you?
I am doing wonderful, my friend. I hope you are doing great. And we are here for another voyage here on the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast. And on this edition, my brother, it is in the air, something nostalgia on Friday night SmackDown. The crown is on the line. That is right. On this edition, we are jumping into the world of sports and entertainment to talk about the King of the Ring and WWE. This podcast is unabashedly wrestling fans, and you would know that over on the Good Brothers. So, Everitt, I think on this edition, we're going to gush and talk about one of our favorite forms of entertainment, whether it's giving us a lot of enjoyment or pissing us off. Before we get to all that, though, make sure you guys are following us all over the universe on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. See the video version of the podcast on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network, and on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. And stay tuned at the end of the show. Everett and I will give us your way to support us outside of the podcast. He and I are what you would call radio professionals. So if you'd like to support us that way, stay tuned to the end of the show. Everett, with that, let's jump into King of the Ring. So for anybody who doesn't know, this is something that's been around since the 1980s. And it had a nice run where it was every single year. It was something to look forward to. And then right around the mid-2000s, they kind of gave up on it. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was a one show a month kind of thing. It was one that really didn't sell. And as we all know, Vince McMahon reportedly doesn't like tournaments. So before we just talk about King of the Ring, when I mentioned that pay-per-view, that gimmick, what thoughts, what emotions come up as a wrestling fan about King of the Ring?
Well, I mean, outside of the Royal Rumble, King of the Ring was that tournament that created your next star. You know, you think about past champions that were made by King of the Ring. One that stands out the most, obviously, is Stone Cold Steve Austin. You know, it was that tournament that birthed the Austin 316, gimmick. And, you know, that's where the speech happened. And so when you think of King of the Ring, you think of the long history of kings, whether it's Stone Cold, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, when he started his, King of Hearts gimmick. I believe Brock Lesnar just wrecked shop in his King of the Ring outing. And so it is, like I said, besides the Royal Rumble, it is the star maker, Well, it was the star maker.
Now, I think the problem with the King of the Ring, and as we dissected, like, I agree with you. The King of the Ring was a great star maker at its time. And I think the big issue with it is they found a way to make a star and elevate someone in a more action-packed kind of way, and that was Money in the Bank. And if you notice, around the time King of the Ring used to be around, it would be the same time as Money in the Bank. And I look back like there's just something classic about Kurt Angle, Edge, Brock Lesnar, Booker T. Remember when William Regal stepped up into a whole new level as the King of the Ring? And there is some kind of prestige. It is its own title. It does kind of have its workers mentality. And there were some guys that were able to implement it, like a King Booker, and it just turned him on McMahon, and King and Queen Sharmell. And it showed to Vince. And that was just really important, right? Money in the Bank is kind of the way of, we're going to hot shot something. King of the Ring almost felt like this is Vince testing you on a character. Can you work? Can you entertain while being a worker? And you saw with Baron Corbin, Vince and probably the writing staff thought, okay, can we give him something beyond being a guy that wears biker stuff? And he used to play in the NFL. And I think that's kind of the mindset that he has. And you can start looking at it like a Billy Gunn, a way to test to see if you can go from the mid card to the championship level. So I think there is something missing in today's WWE without having this. But with that, you see in this program, Shinsuke is now kind of the King of the Ring, King of Strong Style. Do you think it has the same impact when it's just a running story opposed to an event?
To be honest, I really liked what they did with Shinsuke and King Corbin, well, now Baron Corbin, now that he's lost the crown. Spoiler alert if you aren't caught up on SmackDown. But like, I kind of wouldn't mind if they kind of used, the crown as I think like NXT UK has like a little thing where they have like a cup, like a title cup, where you're just competing for like that, king of WWE, is because I feel like I haven't seen like a 24/7 match as of late. And so it would be kind of cool if, the crown sort of adds some kind of I guess, serious element to it where you're fighting for, reign supremacy. Like, you obviously have like, your world titles and stuff like that. But then you have something else to fight for, which is the crown. And, you run the gamut, as the king. And so I like what they're doing. I don't really know what the end game is, but, I know one wrestler who is who's a huge proponent of the King of the Ring is Xavier Woods. And I know he would like to see the long tournament make its way back, but I didn't hate what Shinsuke and Corbin did, especially with Shinsuke having the whole King of Strong style background. And, he brought a whole new element to it, by stealing the crown and, almost feeling possessed by the crown. And so it added a new layer to his character. Because I feel like since he's made it to the main roster, they've been trying to figure out what to do with him. And this might be a new way of maybe revitalizing, a character like him. And so, it's another consolation instead of putting a comedy title on them like the 24/7 was. That was very long-winded, though. I apologize.
No, it's great, though, because it goes to show how if it's done correctly, it means something, that there's some gravitas towards it. It's not just something that they're doing for the sake of doing it. And you're seeing it in NXT television with as we said, in the UK, and then even here where the $1 million title. It's like it all doesn't have to be, in the very traditional way. You're not the NFL, the NBA. You can do whatever you want. You can make anything feel important and feel like it's next level. And I think King of the Ring has enough cachet. It doesn't have to be Hell in a Cell, Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, but it does sell some pay-per-views because people older than us know it and people younger than us know it. And you're able to do something with that brand. And if you're able to take somebody like Xavier Woods, can Xavier Woods ever be world heavyweight champion? I actually think he has a better chance than people thought Kofi originally did. And I think it's a guarantee that Big E, if he's healthy and he stays with the company, will. So I think a move like that for a performer like Xavier Woods can establish him in a different row and a different level. But you can work to that, and that could become something. But if you're able to take maybe a story out of it and make another star with Shinsuke, I'm for it. But I think there is room for a proper King of the Ring. With that, we got the network, or at least now we got Peacock. You have time for programming. You always want to give us a bunch of garbage television whenever you don't want to be creative, when it comes to Raw specifically. Why not have a Monday Night Raw dedicated to King of the Ring? An entire 3-hour show. And I'll do you one better. If you want to bring back King of the Ring, but you're not sure about it, why don't you bring in the inaugural Queen of the Ring? And then the next year, you could do the King of the Ring. With that, what would your thoughts be of a Queen of the Ring?
I would wonder what's taking so long. WWE has shown that they are willing to take progressive steps, even if they are kind of late. But I mean, they had the all women's pay-per-view with Revolution. I believe that's what it's called.
Revolution's AEW.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, be careful. Be careful. All right, the Meltzer Club will come get you.
Don't come for me, Big Dave. Don't come for me. But they had the all-female pay-per-view. They had Bianca and Sasha, main event and close out night 1 at Mania. And so they've shown a willingness, to kind of move forward with the times and provide, the proper platform for women. And so Queen of the Ring, It's like it's about damn time if that was the route that they would go to, and they have a very strong women's roster where if you actually place the right people in there, I mean, there's no telling who could come away there. But if you also want to go the other route to maybe build up a new star, like a Liv Morgan, instead of going the predictable route and maybe crowning Charlotte, who obviously is the queen that she calls herself, but maybe swerving us, using it as a chance to, create those next generations, and so I would be for it. If that's the route you want to take, you had your women's tag titles, so why not do the Queen of the Ring? The women's Money in the Bank,
the women's Royal Rumble. I mean, they've done it.
Have they done a women's elimination chamber yet?
Yes, they've done it for the tag team as well. So it's like they've done some of the steps to get there. I think what's really important, is if you're gonna do it right, and maybe Vince thinks that there is no value to it. So maybe the twist to it, or if it's Kevin Dunn or whatever executive doesn't want King of the Ring or Queen of the Ring. I think the way to sell it is, okay, let's not say the winner of this is going to be elevated to our main event level. Maybe this should be, what low card, opening card person can we get to the mid card and see what they do there? King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring. This is the entry point. I think if you could always explore avenues to go different directions, you're 100% right. I don't need to see Charlotte Flair win a Queen of the Ring. She's already the best, Becky doesn't need to win it. Sasha doesn't need to win it. But Liv Morgan winning it, that's pretty good. Back when Ruby Riott was there, or when the Iconics were there, you start naming people, you're like, that would be something interesting for them. You don't need to give it to the main event guy.
Even someone like a Tamina, who finally became a champion, like a month ago, who's like one of the longest, women talent in that locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I wouldn't even be upset if they did that, but don't go with the usual.
You don't have to. Not for this. If you need to hotshot somebody in Money in the Bank, I get it, right? Because that's perfect storytelling, right? You get a heel to get it, and you can move it forward for them. But I think for here, look, it was a King of the Ring winner was never the next guy. It was the guy you had your eye on for the next 5 years. Think about it. When Brett won it, it was 91, 93. That was before we got Brett. Brett. That's before that. You look at Triple H in 1997. That was on the way up to 99, 2000, 2001. Sheamus in 2010. That was a little bit after his little hot shot around 07, 08, and right before he made his big run when they put the combined titles. So it starts making sense. For some reason, I think us fans, we put so much prestige on it. Another example, Survivor Series. To fans, that means a lot. But to the company, it's how can they utilize it? If that's the case, utilize it to show us on a USA special. They're giving you $1 billion as it is. Spend the 3 hours on a Monday or Tuesday to elevate your stars. How much fun was the Cruiserweight Classic? That was must-see television after NXT. So
a bunch of star makers from there.
Yeah.
You wanted to watch 205 live.
Think about it. Kota Ibushi was there. It introduced you to people that might come back at some point. So there is value to King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring. But with that, do you think we're ever going to get proper pay-per-view tournament King of the Ring? Or do you think that this kind of seems like it's going to be the norm where they'll do storylines with it, it'll come and go, but the King of the Ring of the 90s and the 80s is long gone?
Yeah, I think that's finished. I don't think we'll get an entire 3-hour show dedicated to someone going the distance, like a King of the Ring. Instead, maybe it'll be a story that they stretch out for weeks, like on a Raw or SmackDown, depending on, the way it looks right now. It could be a SmackDown thing where, it can stretch out for weeks. But that's the route I see it going.
Would you want to see it come back, or are you okay with it kind of being gone and almost having just nostalgia for it?
What I would like to see is that, we watch it play out on, your key mark shows like a Raw or SmackDown, but you do the actual crowning at like one of your big fours or something.
I like that. I like that. But make some stakes to it, right? Like an actual storyline for a few weeks. You sprinkle it throughout a 3-hour show. And let's say on the nights of SummerSlam, we're going to have a King of the Ring winner.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. Do you see that being something they might do?
If they hire us.
With that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more. That was fun to kind of, we're kids of the 90s. King of the Ring meant a lot of us. It's one of our favorite logos. Everybody loves that old school King of the Ring logo for that pay-per-view. Kind of like the in your house stuff. It kind of just brings back the Raw is War logo. Like a lot of these things just bring us happy thoughts. So I think for both of us, we love the concept. We love some of the winners. We wish that they would do something with it. But I will say this much. If they don't know what to do with it, don't do it then. Then just don't do it. I think we both can agree with that. But you know what? Let's get away from the crown for a little bit and let's just talk about the E, or back in the day, the F, the Federation. And I asked you before we started recording, I wanted you to have a little bit of time to think about it. I didn't want to put you on the spot. So we talk about like our credentials. You and I are a lot of shows. I was there when CM Punk took on John Cena at Money of the Bank. I was there when NXT did its first house show. Haven't missed the pay-per-view. SmackDown Raws. We've done it all, E-Train. But with that, who is your favorite wrestler? I mean, I know that's a hard question. It's a question we get asked, we all answer, but being on these shows, playing the video games, watching the Attitude Era, the aggression era, all this, who's your favorite wrestler, man?
So, like, my favorite wrestler, and actually I'm going to put like a parentheses with like an S in there because there's two of them. And obviously these are who I'm choosing for me. Mm-hmm. You know,
let us know yours on the bottom. Let us know. We want to hear everybody's got their favorite flavor of ice cream.
There's one thing I hate is the people that's like, oh, well, where is so-and-so in your list? Or, oh, not this person. Like, is that yours? I'm getting in the way of mine. So my favorite wrestler is Bret the Hitman Hart.
Shout out to you. Shout out.
Like, he was the first champion I really saw when I got into professional wrestling. I was never a fan of the guy in the yellow and red. I didn't see it for him, but I resonated with Bret. One, because he was a guy who pulled off pink. And, you know, growing up as a kid, you hear pink is a girly color. And then you have this, you know, manly man rocking the pink and black, and it's just a technically sound wrestler. And, you know, he's a smaller dude as well, but just putting in the work. And, like, yeah, he might have had a dull personality like my other favorite wrestler who I'm going to mention, but you know, he was efficient, you know, couldn't put on a bad match if he tried. And I truly appreciate it from a performance aspect. Like, I believed him, you know, like, yeah, he didn't hit you with the razzle dazzle, but he was technically sound, just like my other favorite, Randy Orton.
Dang.
I'm a Randy Orton apologist.
Randall Kenneth Orton.
Randall Keyshawn Orton. That's what the stands for.
I gotta admit to you, before you go on your Randy love, modern day Randy and modern day Randy on Twitter is a freaking gem.
Yeah. And like present day Randy, who would have ever thought the 180 he would have made during this panoramic? You know, like, he was a heel on television, but he was a heel in real life too.
A better heel in real life.
Yeah. And like, he was kind of the exception that I made for problematic white men that I was willing to tolerate. Like, I only had room for Randy Orton on that list and Jay Cutler to a degree.
No, don't do Jay like that. Oh, Jay.
But Randy has to be like one of the smoothest brothers I've seen in the ring. Prototypical, you know, Vince guy, got the size, got the look, but another dude, mistake free, you know, and like, yeah, he isn't going to hit you with the razzle dazzles and the 450s and all of that, but, you know, he's a good hand. You know, there's a reason why I forgot who said it in the interview. I think they were like talking to Jericho or something a while back, but Vince was like, before, I want to try to make this guy a possible next star, I need to see how he looks next to Randy. And so Randy was kind of like that measuring stick. Like, if you can look good next to Randy, you're in.
Yeah, you're in.
I mean, if I'm correct, I believe Roman Reigns' first one-on-one match was against Randy Orton.
It might have been, especially during that early time of
Yeah.
Shield. And then think about it, like, who's he with right now? It's with Riddle. And McMahon's got some plans for Riddle. That writing team has some stuff for him. So who do you put him next to? Who do you give him the rub with? Randy Orton.
I mean, look who McIntyre had one of his longest feuds with as a champion.
I mean, Daniel Bryan. I mean, there's a reason why the guy is so dependable. He's one of the best ever. And like you said, the 180 turn that he's done in his career, it's going to be something that people are going to talk about forever. And the great thing is, he's going to be around for just as long because he takes care of himself and he knows his character and how to take care of his character. I love your Bret Hart one. Bret Hart is actually my favorite. He was my first favorite wrestler. He was my dad's favorite wrestler. Like you said, the pink and black attack, like, he made it cool. I always wanted to be one of the kids that got the glasses. I always wanted to have my own little leather jacket with the tassels, the excellence of execution. Like, he was the man. Like, he made everything matter. He made wearing the wrestling uni, but with the long pants cool. Like, he was the guy, and leave it to WCW to screw it up. But that's a different conversation. So you saying that, obviously, my Attitude Era favorite wrestler is The Rock. I think my favorite character is The Undertaker, but my favorite wrestler of all time, Viva la Raza. Come on, Latino Heat, Eddie Guerrero. I am, yo soy tu papi. I am your father. Like, Dominic's real father is the best wrestler of all time, in my opinion.
You will not get an argument out of me from there. And there was such a missed opportunity. I was on Twitter like last month, and someone had showed a clip where, like, the Filthy Animals and the NWO, the Brett-led NWO, had like a spat. And for like a few minutes, you're seeing Eddie and Brett just going at it.
Ooh.
And apparently they had never touched.
Crazy.
And I can only imagine just a missed opportunity. Like, two small guys, but workers, two different styles. Like, we really missed out on a treat and a possible dream match that we could discuss with your next question that will be coming up in a few.
Well, it's funny because you saying that one of my dream matches has always been Eddie Guerrero versus The Rock, but proper Eddie Guerrero and proper Rock, prime of each other, going against one another, not like Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero and not Hollywood Rock. I wanted The Rock versus Eddie, and we never quite got that, because Eddie was at his hottest at like 04 to 06 before he died. So like, there is a little period of that, but we mention it. Favorite matches. Again, it goes hand in hand when you talk about favorite wrestlers, favorite match. When I say that to you, I know there's so many that come up. I'm not going to even name them because I don't want to hit on maybe one that's yours. So when I said that to you, what came top of mind?
Actually, there's probably one that I know you wouldn't think of, and it's it's a more recent one.
Okay.
And it's on before it kind of just became, this throwaway show now on Friday nights. It comes from 205 Live, and it was Chad Gable versus Jack Gallagher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was a banger. Another good match. I'm going to say this now. It's going to be mostly little guys.
Go for it. Your list.
So there was also Cedric versus Ali at Mania.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for that. Eddie versus Mysterio, Halloween Havoc.
Great match. I mean, you talk about, one that you get to go backwards. It's almost like when two rookies go against each other in sports and you're able to kind of go call back to it later on after they play each other in Super Bowls. You're like, these two guys who opened up Halloween Havoc in Vegas would end up being world heavyweight champions in the biggest stage of them all. And not just that, relevant in 2021 still. Like, that is a great match itself.
Another one, and I mean, well, I guess his name isn't really scrubbed anymore, but Brett versus Benoit.
Road Wild, Roadhog.
Maybe I feel like it was a Monday Nitro match, but
It could have been totally.
I felt like I remember seeing that on a Monday Nitro, which kudos for giving it to us on free television.
That's all
And,
Eric Bischoff ever did. Everything was on free TV to beat McMahon.
Like, it's such a long list, and I don't want to go towards the gimmick matches because I know that's another question we have. But another one that happened within the past few years was in Chicago at Extreme Rules, AJ Styles versus Roman Reigns. That
Phenomenal. I was there for that one. Great match. Yeah, you and I have been to a lot of the same shows, even though like we've gone separately. Like we've gone to a lot of the stuff that's been at the Allstate Arena. And first of all, Allstate Arena is one of the best homes for WWE. Some of the greatest. I saw Brock Lesnar versus John Cena at Extreme Rules when Lesnar jumped from the staircase over the rope and everybody thought he tore up his knee. I saw the Jericho Punk matches. So many great ones. I'll tell you one, never made it on television. One of the greatest matches I've ever seen is when NXT was at the Portage Theater. They had two shows. Tommaso Ciampa versus Sami Zayn. One of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my matches. This is before anybody knew who Ciampa was. This was before DIY. He was still going as Psycho Killer. That's how early this was.
And I've been at those AEW shows when a lot of these stars we're seeing now on NXT and main roster and even AEW, like we were watching them in like freaking Cermak.
Yeah,
I was there for Ciampa's last match in Cermak.
It's one of the great. We have so many home-based, not just men and intergender, female-only wrestling companies in this city. It is so great. Like we are a hotbed for up-and-comers that are eventually going to go down to Orlando, Tampa, and to Jacksonville. So, it's so true you say that. But yeah, that one as a house show was one of my favorite matches ever. John Cena versus CM Punk. That night, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps for it. We're heading into the anniversary of it. That was my first ever live show. I had never been to a wrestling show before. I think it was July 17th or June 17th. I might be off on the date. But in 2011, at 21 years old, I made the decision. I'm going to that show. Went to that show, had no way. I thought every wrestling show was going to be like that. Kind of. Chicago's crazy.
Yeah.
That was one of the most amazing. Daniel Bryan wins Money in the Bank. Alberto Del Rio, before we knew he was a garbage human, won his Money in the Bank. Christian won his heavyweight championship. And we saw CM Punk become WWE champion. So I think that was not only some of the best matches, that was an amazing card. I mean, just my final one. NXT War Games. When Kevin Owens came out, one of the loudest pops I've ever heard in my entire wrestling life. But when Tommaso Ciampa climbed to the very top of that War Game structure and held Adam Cole, and for that second, the entire building stopped, and that air raid crash happened. 1, 2, 3, one of the greatest NXT moments. That ranks up there for me.
Yeah.
But with NXT War Games, favorite gimmick match, you can't talk the Federation, WWE, the WWE Universe without thinking about gimmick matches. We've talked about King of the Ring. We've talked about War Games. When I give you that question, does it go directly to the one I think everybody thinks of, or do you have something a little sneaky when it comes to your favorite gimmick match?
Man, there's been so many good ones, but like at first I was leaning towards the Royal Rumble because that's always fun to see. But I will say that I have become a huge fan of Survivor Series because you find yourself actually picking a side. It's the battle of the brands. And I've been a blue guy since, the like 02.
SmackDown versus Raw.
Yeah, when they first started the draft. I've been blue, since then, even during the dark days. Like I've stood by them. And so like I'm always rooting for SmackDown, even though Raw just continues to whoop that ass. I go with blue every time. Even when they added NXT to it, I still rock with the blue brand. And so Survivor Series is my jam. And Money in the Bank.
Yeah, that's
because you just don't know.
Yeah.
You know, Money in the Bank or any, form of a ladder match with multiple people involved, I'll always enjoy those. But Money in the Bank just raises the stakes a lot more.
So I think we both could agree Money in the Bank, probably we should have taken out of it because that one is just so perfect. You don't have to tweak Money in the Bank. That one is just chef's kiss. Leave it to McMahon and Jericho if that's the true story that they came up with that concept kind of working together. So that's in its own amazing. Royal Rumble, of course, a great one, a traditional one. Really fast when you're mentioning the SmackDown thing. The reason I'm a blue brand, I am Team SmackDown, is because, as you know, I didn't always have cable our life. It was kind of when you live in Chicago, when you didn't have the hot box anymore, all you could watch was UPN. So shout out to SmackDown for always being over the air television. So
and shout outs to Moesha.
Oh, come on now. If you don't know, look it up, kids. So gimmick matches wise, though, this is the one that it meant everything to me. It was something where when I had my imagination and I would just let myself daydream, what would be the match that I would challenge The Undertaker to at WrestleMania, and Mike Mercado was going to break the streak. Hell in a Cell. It is the perfect gimmick match. It is the perfect blow-off match. It was. Now that they made it a toy, it's got the red fencing, and you really can't do any blood. It loses some of it, but I think the prestige of watching Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, Undertaker versus Mankind. You have Triple H versus Mankind, Brock Lesnar versus Undertaker. So many great Hell in a Cell matches. It meant so much. You talk about gravitas. You and I knew this when somebody would say, in Hell in a Cell, like it was going down. Now, with that, I don't need people being butchers and cutting their heads open and stuff. I get it. So I do think inherently, the fact that it doesn't look dingy anymore, the red looks so clean. It looks gimmicky. It looks like it's a toy. Shout out to them. They're making money. And the fact that we don't want people butchering themselves, it takes that ferociousness that was Hell in a Cell and kind of dilutes it a little bit. That's fine. I don't need people killing themselves. So because of that, I think the Royal Rumble is kind of the runaway winner.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess last man standing, when done right, also is a really fun story to be told. I think more fun than a Iron Man match. Our favorite wrestler of the time, Bret Hart, one of the most famous ones, loses to Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 11. WrestleMania 11, WrestleMania 12. I think it was WrestleMania 11. With that, do you like the Iron Man match?
I liked it back then. But it's really one of those matches where you got to have a workhorses that can, keep an audience engaged for 60 minutes.
Yeah, it's hard.
So, you got to have a Bret or a Shawn or a Kurt Angle or, Kenny Omega. You got to have those kind of sure hands that can keep you engaged for 60 minutes and not just settle for, headlocks, for a good 25 of those 60s. So, if it's involving like an AJ Styles or an Adam Cole or Finn Balor or Pete Dunne, a lot of little guys,
right,
who have to, for like pretty much overcompensate for not being 6'1" and not a build 6'1".
Right.
But you got to have those kind of workers in order for an Iron match to really work.
And I think if done right, produced right, you're 100%, it can knock it out of the park. But it's just so hard because these guys work so much too. They work so hard. So it's hard to tell them to put their bodies like that. So yeah, I agree with you. When done right, it's definitely one of the top tier ones. But this was that was a lot of fun to kind of go through the road of gimmicks.
Wait, hold on.
Yo.
So, we talk about gimmick matches, but there's so many gimmicks that we could mention that wouldn't exist without who I would say is the king of gimmick matches. And as you said, one of your favorite gimmick wrestlers, and also one of mine, The Undertaker. You don't get your casket matches. You don't get your buried alive. You don't get an inferno. You don't get Hell in a Cell. You don't get the Boneyard without the Undertaker.
100%. A boiler room match. Like there's there's so many good ones. I mean, there was a body bag match. Like the Undertaker was built for gimmicks. And you know who was too? And it's a shame that they never capitalized on it. And I don't know if they could because of the pandemic, but was The Fiend. The Fiend was built for all these different things. And the fact that we haven't had a buried alive match in a while, and I don't want to hear that it's a gimmick and it's too unreal. We've seen two guys fighting for a crown. I don't want to hear about it. Like, we call people kings in his universe. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. Jim Cornette isn't in charge of the universe. You can have some fun. Doesn't matter. It's all ice cream. So, yeah, I agree with you. Undertaker, he just brings up so many of it. We didn't talk about TLC, obviously one of our favorites. There's just so many. There's just so many.
Hard to just choose one.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to just have one. It's like a potato chip. But I was going to say this one before we head out. There's no way that we could finish this conversation. We've gone through King of the Ring. We've talked about our favorite wrestlers, theories about things you could do with the company with some of these events. But they do knock it out of the park with some of these events. The gravitas, the prestige, the logo. What is your favorite WWE pay-per-view?
Ever?
It's not necessarily like a show, but what is the pay-per-view that like you want to be at, you want to watch? It means something. I mean, for me, I'm a basic B, and WrestleMania, the show I want to see the most live because I've seen Survivor Series. I would love to see a SummerSlam, but that's just WrestleMania summer. But Royal Rumble, to be there for the events, but to actually, as a wrestling fan, go to the Holy Land and be at a WrestleMania is kind of like the last thing I want to do, and it means a lot. Every year. For you, is that WrestleMania, or is there another pay-per-view where you're like, yeah, WrestleMania is cool, whatever. That's kind of the Super Bowl, but more for the common fan or the casual fan. Is there a pay-per-view that you just that's the one?
Well, I was fortunate to attend a WrestleMania. I attended the New Orleans one.
Oh, that's the most recent one or the Daniel Bryan one? Okay, that was a good one too.
So I had the privilege of attending that one, and you know, my friends and I, we still talk about it. And it wasn't even necessarily the event, but just everything that happened leading up to it. You know, just being amongst all of these, you know, fellow dorks and nerds and seeing them come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors. Like, you know, I don't necessarily have the look or even the aesthetics of a nerd. But like, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I'm not as, you know, fanatical as I used to be about it as far as, you know, wanting to dress up like them, but like, it's still very much ingrained in me. And so to be amongst my people and then, you know, to see just, you know, wrestlers walking down, you know, Bourbon Street, and, you know, we know who they are, but like, you know, your locals don't know that, you know, you're seeing, well, now Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood just walking. Like, it was really cool to just, you know, be in that environment and to just take everything in. And, you know, you had the NXT show. It was a wonderful layout. And so I really enjoyed WrestleMania. But to answer your question, I would probably say I would like to attend the Royal Rumble just for that surprise.
Yeah.
That you always get.
It'll be more fun.
Whether it's a return or, you know, a surprise signee. You know, you don't know what you're going to get. And like, it's always a fun time to watch that.
I 100% agree. I think for me, going to WrestleMania is just like you said, to go to the Holy Land. It's like when I go to Puerto Rico or Mexico, you're touching that Holy Land of one of the big fixtures in our pop culture life, and something that we really enjoy doing. But I'm 100% with you. I cannot wait till the Good Brothers and the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast one day get to go to the Royal Rumble, and it deserves to come to Chicago. Survivor Series felt special on a 4-day weekend to have SmackDown, NXT, Survivor Series, and Raw. It felt like it deserved to be in Chicago when it's in New York and LA. I think Royal Rumble in the second city, the Windy City, the unofficial official home of WWE and AEW. Both of them, we own them. They're ours in our city.
We are a wrestling town.
We are.
And it'll be very interesting to see what happens if, the Bears end up buying that Arlington property, and if they really do it up, it'll be interesting to see if maybe WWE starts making bids for having SummerSlam or the Rumble or even a Mania there, especially if they implement a dome.
Oh yeah, a retractable roof to start the
Yeah.
day in the sun, and then to end WrestleMania under the roof would be amazing. I do think, regardless, Soldier Field 2 is going bye-bye. And this is a little inside baseball as we wrap up. Thank you guys for joining us on this edition. You could bounce out if you want, because now you have two Chicago boys talking about the potential of WrestleMania. But the Soldier Field 2, when it's gone, I think no matter what happens with Soldier Field 3, there will be a roof on it. So I do think WrestleMania, I do think the Royal Rumble, an NCAA tournament, whatever you think will be in Chicago sooner than later. I think for all of us, one of those two in a 70, 80,000 stadium in Chicago, whether on the lakefront or in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, will be absolutely amazing. But Everitt, this has been amazing. We did a run-in, and we are talking to our wrestling peeps. We got a chance to talk about the King of the Ring, some of our favorite wrestlers, what got us into this world of great characters and storytelling and ups and downs, great writing, horrible writings, and sometimes the ebbs and flow of wrestling where it's right in our veins and it's surging in pop culture, and sometimes it's a sleeping giant. So I'll be interested to see when they actually hit crowds. I will be at Monday Night Raw when they come to Chicago. We'll keep an eye out if the two Nerds of a Feather podcast and the Good Brothers will be there together, but at least a representative will be there when the WWE comes back home. With that, Everitt, any final thoughts about wrestling, the WWE, anything as we've wrapped down this conversation?
I think this might be our longest episode yet, and it's quite fitting that it was wrestling, because besides radio, how you and I bonded, and we probably could have done additional hours just talking about this, because it's just so impactful, on my life. And I'm not about to do the whole "it's still real to me, damn it," but I've made so many analogies in real life to like a scenario by using wrestling, whether it's jargon or story. Like everything is literally wrestling, and people like to poo on it, but like if you actually watch it for what it is and not expecting like an actual fight, which I don't know why people seem to not be able to, turn off their like suspend their disbelief for this. It's Broadway, man. It's Broadway for bros and ladies too. So broette, are dudettes out there, but it's a Broadway action movie.
It's all it is.
But I just say all that. Yeah.
It's all it is.
But I just say all that to say, like, it's such an amazing and wacky world, and I'm glad that I'm still able to talk about it with the same enthusiasm that I had as a child. And it's really just another indicator of, making sure you're keeping those things in your life that provides you joy, because there is always going to be something out there, that's going to weigh you down. Life is going to get to you. And, those 3 hours we have on Mondays, the 2 hours we have on Fridays, the 3 or 4 we'll have on Sunday, for Hell in a Cell. It's a beautiful distraction.
And everything in between, all the hours of AEW, NXT.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned like all the other promotions, but AEW, Impact, NWA, New Japan, like
Ring of Honor. Yeah, I mean, it's like, great. It's thriving.
Like I will teach my future Bam Bam and Pebbles to enjoy this just as much as I do until they can grow up and think for themselves. But I'm just really thankful for it, and I thank you, the viewer if you're watching on YouTube, or the listener for just allowing us two nerds to just kind of mark out on all things wrestling and also be constructive with what we're saying. And if you have any gripes about what we said, or if you disagree with who our favorites are or what our gimmick matches are, please just keep in mind that Justin Fields is the quarterback of the Chicago Bears, and you will not talk to me any kind of way.
His name is Everitt O'Neill, and he is 1/3 of the Trios champion. I am Mike Mercado. one of the other thirds of the trio champions. Thank you so much for joining us on this. We went Broadway. We are the steamboats and the flair of this podcast world. Thank you guys so much. We hope you enjoyed this little conversation as we put over wrestling and the universe that is. If you would like us to talk about AEW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, and all these other great independents like an Impact, I don't know if I just got people mad by calling it Impact and Independent, but you know what I mean. Any wrestling company, we love to talk about it. And like Everitt said, we'll be constructive criticism, but we love this stuff. We want to embrace this stuff. We're not here to trash on this stuff. We just want to talk about it like we do sports. And if you don't like it, you're not going to talk to us any which way, because like the big man said, Justin Fields is our quarterback. Everitt, what do you got planned for this weekend? Where can people support you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Bodhi World Peace, no relation to Meta. BODHI World Peace. We don't want to do all that. Obviously, I'm on air with 1023XLC. You can follow them on IG as well. 1023XLC is the handle. They're on Twitter and Facebook like us. You can listen to me Saturday nights from 6 p.m. to midnight. From 9 to 11, I do this little mix show cuts with my boy Jay Skills. And then Sundays, I'm on 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And, you know, eventually, I don't know, maybe I might open up like a side business of like watching children, because I do work with kids of all ages. So
when he does that,
that might be like not the right kind of way to solicit. Just know I have the right intentions.
He's got all the best of intentions, and we'll make sure that we prop that up here on the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast. I'll be on Chicago radio talking about sports this Sunday, June 20th, Father's Day. There's a lot of news about the Chicago Bears on WCPT 820 AM locally and 820 Progressive Talk on the Google. You guys just follow me on Twitter at Mike M Media and at Couch Sports Talk. I'll make sure to leave the link in the description so you guys can join us and talk sports then. But of course, until then, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. You can see these two handsome young men, future champions, all over the Twitterverse as well, all over the podcast world, all over the universe. But until then, for the one, the only, Everitt O'Neal, I'm Mike Mercado. We will see you next time on the Two Nerds of a Feather podcast.